Hello and welcome to episode 66 of When the Flames Go Up, the ATFC podcast. First things first, sorry about the mic. The quality is not as good as last season, and I am trying to fix that at some point, but it probably won't be in August. So hold fire, and hopefully it'll be better soon. A bit more clearer, a bit more bassy. It seems quite tinny, so apologies for that. If my voice wasn't annoying enough, it's now coming through a bad output. Uh, this episode is with myself, Ash, and Julian discussing the Alty away game and look ahead to Eastleigh next Wednesday and Boston before that on Saturday. We also had a voice note from Guy, which I'll feed in at some point. You'll hear a whoosh, and then the voice of Guy will come in. I've recently started the Instagram, the old Instagram. So if you're that way inclined and you go on Instagram, then maybe you'd like to see some clips from the episodes as we release them, which I'm now able to put together because I have a new laptop. Well, not a new laptop, a new old laptop. Uh, Maybe at some point I'll give you the rundown of what I used to have to do to edit this podcast because it is genuinely subjectively quite ludicrous and funny. Anyway, that's for another episode or a mini episode or the Instagram. So go follow at When the Flames Go Up. Easy as that. And yeah, enjoy the episode. Up the shots. So the shots are began the season with a defeat away to Altrincham, a 2-0 deficit at half time, overturned to 2-2 in the second half, before being for the lead was back in Altrinham's hands a couple of minutes later. Lots of set pieces, lots of defensive vulnerabilities, but plenty of attacking endeavour to think about tonight. We've got Ash and Julian on the call, so we're going to still talk about Altrincham game first before we look ahead to the Boston United home game, first home game of the season in the league, and then Eastleigh around the corner on a Wednesday. So I'm going to come to you first, Julian. Your first appearance on the pod this year. You were at Altrincham on the weekend. What were your impressions?
Yeah, I will. Thanks for inviting me back for my third season. I thought I would have been binned by now, but very kind of you to invite me back. Yeah, I was up at the game on Saturday. I was very fortunate to be in the co-commentary box, so I got a bird's eye view of the game, and it was a real first half, second half complete difference, wasn't it, between the two? And we just didn't seem to get started. I was looking at the match and thinking that Alty have got off to a really good start. Although having said that, it didn't feel as if they were causing us too many problems with like a one or two sort of long balls, which we were dealing with quite comfortably. But yeah, we just couldn't seem to get a foothold in the game for me. And when they scored their first goal, it again, the response after that first goal was a bit disappointing as well. It really didn't feel as if we just got going at all in the first half. And it was it must have been one hell of a team talk, I think, at half time. But one of the interesting things for me, and I think sort of pre-recording, you've mentioned it about the Widrington captain situation. I mean, he hasn't been confirmed as the season's captain, by the way. I've sort of been privy to that information. But at the moment, what I've been told is that they will take it on a case by case, a game by game basis. So there has been no official confirmation yet of the captaincy for the season. But yeah, I don't know how Ash sort of saw that first half, but for me, we just weren't in it at all. There was nothing there that Abrahams was particularly, it felt really isolated, and the ball wasn't sticking with him either. They were trying to get it up to him, but it just wasn't working for him. So I think we needed to make changes, and perhaps you could argue the changes were made a little bit too late, and we were potentially already out the game. But yeah, I don't know what you thought, Ash, of the first half.
Similar sort of thought process with the first half. I feel our little pre-season had something to do with it. I just felt we were just off that pace and off of that, um, what do we call it, sharpness. Their player, I think it was Reading, who was up against Penny, really looked strong for them. And that's where I thought they were exploiting quite a lot of gaps. I am in the camp of Abraham's, of the fact that you said he just doesn't seem to be, he seems very isolated. I don't know if the system is quite what he was expecting, so it might take a while for him to gel in. Um, our centre, our defenders at the moment are just, I thought the first two goals were gifts, and I thought coming out of that first half, we could have been 3 or 4 down, and it could have been a lot worse than what it was. Um, Second half, as I say, whoever did that team talk needs to do it every single time. We were a totally different side going forward. I think the midfield duo just controlled things a little bit better. And I thought Theo actually in that second half had an absolute blinder of a second half. I don't know if you agree with that. I know a lot of people said Tetek had a good game. My man of the match was Theo for some of the balls he was putting in, and he didn't really put a foot wrong in there. It was just disappointing after going to the 2-2. We kind of went and sat back. The corner they scored, basically, I don't know if you noted on it, it ended up being on a 4-on-4 situation for the cross. So it was like normally in a corner you would have maybe 6 or 8 outfield players. I don't know if we just overstretched thinking we can get them on the counter and they nipped their third goal. It was just a little bit of a disappointment that third one after all that effort of going from 2-0 down to 2-2. I feel also we just need to stay solid for that first half and then come out in the second half and explode a little bit more. Because in this league, if you go 2-0 down every single game in the first half and have a poor first half, you're just making things 10 times more difficult for yourself. I don't know if you agree there with that thought process, Julian.
Yeah, I would. I was just going to think a couple of observations I did make on the game was that I never like to blame the refs because it's at the end of the day we conceded the goals, but the ref was really picky and he was blowing for everything. And I lost count of the number of free kicks he gave, but what we didn't do is we didn't respond quick enough when those free kicks were given. And I think the first goal and the third goal were as a result of these petty free kicks that the ref had given, and we weren't alive to those moments, and Alty were. And with the third goal, you can't let the ball bounce in the penalty box, and that we had three opportunities to do something and we didn't. So if that happens when the ball is coming into your box, then you're always going to be liable to losing a goal, and so it proved to be.
Yeah, I was going to jump in um, on some of that. So I was watching a stream, which wasn't ideal. It was skipping every 20 seconds or so. So I'm sure I've missed some bits. But yeah, I agree mostly with what both of you have said. Yeah, it's Carol Redding on that right hand side against Penny, and Ollie Crankshaw or Cranshaw versus Hill on the other side were terrorizing us in that first half. They pinned us back. Our wing backs looked like just normal right backs. They couldn't get past the halfway line. I mean, if they'd watched any games last year, they would have known to come out like that because we can't go anywhere if our wing backs don't get forward. And I mean, last year, I think when we had Aaron Jones in the team, sometimes we would have one side would be a little bit more defensive or push back, and that'd be okay because at least we had an out ball. And I think in the first half, our only out ball was up front to Abraham's, so he had nothing to his feet. He had no other way of getting the ball other than getting it from 40 foot up in the air. Um, and I thought he did okay. I thought, as you mentioned, Julian, the ref, the petty fouls. I think the one time he does bring it down perfectly, like kind of a bit like Brett Williams used to do back in the day, just pluck it out of the air. For some reason, he gave a foul the other way for I don't know, a hold or something. It was nowhere near the player, I swear. So I saw glimpses of what Abraham can do. I think Abraham, sorry. Um, but yeah, then kind of contrast that with the second half where, I mean, Hill and Penny were basically in their half most of the time, and there were always an outlet, and that seemed to give more space to Theo and Tetek. So I don't know if, I mean, obviously the team talk, and I mean, I think it's a pretty easy team talk. I mean, we've got something has to change. We've got to make more room for ourselves. I don't know if the defense was able to just drop 10 yards and just give ourselves a bit more room. Obviously, we had Will Nightingale on for Ben Jackson, who got a nasty kick in the face. Well, I say it's not nasty, but I mean, the actual injury is nasty. Maybe that just allowed us to drop off a bit and give Theo had so much room to spray those balls, which we know he can. And he obviously had Penny and Hill in space to hit. So, yeah, a weird one to come away from because I felt like we were really good in that second half, but I obviously came away from it thinking, well, I don't want to play like that every week if we're going to lose 3-2. And yeah, the third goal is probably the most frustrating because I felt like the first two were under pressure. They're attacking our wing backs. That's fine. Like this is going to happen. You're going to be in periods of pressure. But the one thing you can control is how you deal with the first ball from a set piece. And also you can deal with the second ball if you can't deal with the first ball. And somehow we've conspired to miss 3 and the ball's still looped into the back of the net. So hopefully there'll be some stern words on the dressing room after they've looked at that video, because that was about as badly as you can defend a set piece, I think. Grand. What other things? Yeah, I don't know if you had any other thoughts on what changed at halftime. I mean, I can't verify whether they did drop deep. It just seemed like we had so much more room to pass.
Yeah, I think Nightingale did make a difference. You could tell the experience of Will Nightingale, and his passing I thought was a joy to behold. Actually, the way he was able to move the ball really quickly, and I think that gave a little bit more space for Theo to work in as well. But one of the interesting observations that was made to me with regard to Alty actually is that over the last few seasons, if they get 1 or 2 goals ahead, then they tend to drop off really quickly, and will often be sort of holding on for a 2-0 lead from sort of 30 minutes onwards, and I think that may have played into the game a little bit, in that I think Alty probably came out with the thought process of, we're 2-0 up here, guys. Whatever you do not lose this game now. And I think with our momentum, in that we had to do something different, I think it was always going to be a natural progression for the game to sort of flow in our direction. But apparently, with the introduction of Alan Dowson onto the staff as well, Dowse is a perfect man manager in those sort of situations, and I'm really looking forward to sort of understanding how his role becomes a part of the backroom team, because I think actually, although he probably won't get mentioned too much this season, I think he's going to have a real positive effect on team performance, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if that team talk was actually taken by Dowse to get things moving for the second half.
Yeah. We've also got James Henry and that backroom staff as well. So we're interested to see how they all kind of piece together. It's not often we have too many movements in a backroom staff unless a manager goes. But I suppose the final thing on Alty, I think we talked in the preview beforehand about losing all those key players, Regan Linney and Amaluza and Alex Newby, and they've basically just replaced them, not necessarily like for like, because I think Crankshaw and Reddin are very direct and are going to be great to watch, I'm sure, all season long. I can see that front three scoring plenty of goals, enough goals to get them. I'm not going to say, well, this is the thing you do after one game, isn't it? You start saying, well, they're a good side. They'll probably finish top 10. Then you list off 23 teams that are going to finish in the top 10. And then you're like, hold on, we might finish 23rd here. So, yeah, good luck to Alty, and we'll see him later in the season. Grand. Well, let's move on to the I guess, the highly anticipated first proper home game of the season. Um, as we record, last night was the National League Cup, the return of that, at home to Brighton and Hove Albion's under-21s. And Boston have been keeping themselves busy with two under-21 games due to their opening fixture, which was going to be Morecambe. So they beat Middlesbrough under-21s and then recently beat Leeds under-21s 4-0. Most recently, and I don't know if he scored last night, but he definitely played. Geordie Hawula has been signed as a striker. They also signed Linnell John Lewis, so they've got a new front line compared with last season when they had Jacob Hazel up top, causing us lots of chaos in the games last season. So we lost 2-1 away to Boston last year and a 1-1 draw at the Rec. Ash, I'll come to you first. Boston at home at the weekend. How are you feeling? And obviously you were at the National League Cup as well, so you might have a little glimpse into the lineup for Saturday.
Yeah. Boston are one of these, we haven't seen them play. We've only seen them play against under-21 side. So it's kind of an unknown quantity. A lot of people are putting us down as possibly this is one that we're not going to win at home, because of their form coming into the back end of last year was very good. Their signings they've made, as you touched, like literally just had one player circled for them, which was John Lewis. We know what he's all about, and I think that shows what Boston will be about. I think we're going to be the entertainers this season for sure. I think there's going to be quite a few goals in this one, hopefully for the first home game of the season. The National League Cup lineup last night, basically Theo he was on the bench. He was just not played at all. Barrett seemed to be carrying a knock, which was quite interesting. And they played Abrahams and Rye up front. To start with, they gave minutes to Hill as well in his usual position for Josh Barrett in the last 20 minutes. Looked very good on the side there. So I don't know if we're going to see a Josh Barrett rest onto the bench for this next one. Scoreline, I'm not going to be at the game. I'm going to be trying to get a stream on it. This is one of the few I miss. But I think we will be going for probably, I'd like to say, a 2-2 draw. Considering our defending at the moment has still got a lot of time to gel, and I think they're going to need that a lot of time to gel in this. But I think 2-2. I'm going to go 2-2. I think that'll be a good first point of the season.
Lovely, and also great to hear the word gel coming in. You only got the first 6 games you're allowed to use gel, so I'm hoping we use it at least once a week. So there's its first mention. Julian, what are your thoughts ahead of Boston at the weekend?
I think this is going to be an interesting one because, as Ash quite pointed out, the back end form of last season from Boston was effectively promotion winning form. They were absolutely on fire, and yet they've made quite a few changes over the summer. So yeah, I think they may need time to gel, Will. So it's I actually do. I think that they may not be as on fire as they were at the end of last season. So I think it's actually a good time to play them. I'm not sure which Aldershot is going to turn up. I mean, it was really good I wasn't at the game last night, but it was really good that Haddy scored, and I'm hoping that he can carry on his pre-season form. And I think we mentioned him in the review in that I think we would like nothing better than for Haddy to be our 15, 20 goal striker. So his confidence must be high, and I'm wondering again that point that Ash made about Barrett. I noticed that he wasn't moving perhaps 100% on Saturday, so I'm wondering whether he is carrying a little bit of a knock too, and I'm just wondering whether he may go with a Haddy and an Abrahams up top starting point, with Barrett perhaps to come off the bench if need be. But there was also a trialist playing last night as well in the back three. By all accounts, I believe it was a lad from Crystal Palace called Noah Watson, who with the injury to Ben Jackson, it does leave us short again. We've got more defenders on the bench than we can get on the pitch, I think, at the moment. So it wouldn't surprise me if they sign this guy up from Palace, perhaps on a month loan, just to sort of, again, plug the gap there. But if you were to push me for a result, I'm always going to be optimistic. First game of the season, big crowd in there. I think we can come away with, God, I nearly said 3-0 then, Will. Surely not. Or has that been too optimistic? Yeah, let's go for it. Come on, 3-0.
Love it. A clean sheet so early in the season. They'll be spoiling us if they bring that. Yes. What was I going to say? Yeah, Noah Watson. Yes, Crystal Palace trialist. Yeah, I guess the other thing I was just thinking then, Jed Mearholes obviously made his debut on Saturday in the left of the defence. I was just thinking, on Saturday, oh, he doesn't look like a centre back, but then I forget that we've basically not even played a centre back there, or an out and out centre back there, for basically 2 seasons. So I remarked at the time thinking it was a bit weird, or it looked like a kind of square peg in a round hole. But I mean, I guess that's where we are. That position is, a little bit more expansive, left-footed centre back. So. And yeah, I guess on the Barrett thing, you'd hope if he was carrying anything that they would not be risking any minutes in the National League Cup. But I'll leave that to Tommy and the team. Hopefully they know if he's not just saying yes, that he's fit to play and is going to risk himself for a league game. So yeah, Boston. I did read that Graham Coughlin, manager, he was approached by Hartlepool. Just a few weeks ago, I think, or last month, before the season started, which was rejected by Boston. I think they're in talks to extend his contract, but his stock is definitely rising since their remarkable survival last season. It's still, I know that they finished. Where did they finish last year? They finished 19th, 3 points above the drop, but they were completely cast adrift. So yeah, I'll be interested to see how they've changed that team since then. And obviously, John Lewis and Hibula, and you know exactly what you're going to get, which is a big hold-up man and a pretty handy striker at this level.
So, I didn't catch the Altrincham game. I was at another one, and so I'll defer to what other people were saying who were there or who were watching it on streaming. I did follow the score from a distance, and so I was a bit frustrated at halftime to see the team 2-0 down, but was very encouraged to see that they got back to 2-2, only to then concede again, a few minutes later. And having watched the highlights, you can see it's frustrating that happened. On the plus sides, the positives, it did strike me that the defence, which we've invested a bit of time in over the summer, seems to be bedding in with the new backs there of Nightingale and Mearholtz and Claridge. They seem to play quite well. Just some lapses of concentration were really what gave away those goals. And I noted that although they were not necessarily set plays, they did start from free kicks that Altrincham had, and in which Aldershot was effectively on the back foot. So a bit frustrating there. On the plus side, good to see the team get back in, even if they did have another lapse of concentration having equalised. In some ways, this is a continuation of the story that we've had since last season, where we were shipping goals when we really shouldn't have been doing. Some nice opportunities, Abraham's turning and hitting the crossbar from distance. So I got the feeling there that potentially we might see some opportunities opening up later on in the season. Okay, so now I move to the game against Brighton under-21s, which I was at. As an overseas shot, only don't get to go down to see Aldershot games that much in terms of live action. So I have to take the games as and when they come up. And also it was an opportunity to be able to be back at the ground as well, which I haven't been to for a while. It was a good evening in terms of weather. Temperature was very pleasant. started to cool down despite having been a really hot day. We had around 500 in attendance, so a reasonable crowd. I mean, I understand some of the sentiments of those fans who don't like the idea of the National League Cup, and I'm not 100% behind it myself, but I do see it as an opportunity to test and experiment a bit. We saw that last year with Widrington choosing to take the competition seriously, and also using the cup those cup games as a way of bringing players back in who are otherwise had previously been injured or who are lacking form. So there is an opportunity to experiment here. I see it really as a kind of a continuation of the pre-season friendlies. So with that, obviously there was quite a bit of a change in the starting lineup. We didn't have Nightingale, but we did have Meerholtz at the back, as well as this trialist Watson, who people around me seem to be talking of with some approval. I was struck that in the first half, Barrett seems to be dropping back and playing Abrahams more on, in some way similar to what Henry was doing last season. I noticed, of course, after half-time that they shifted, so he was much more up front before the top two were taken off for Hill and Gandor, and that seemed to also be an interesting partnership. And of course, Gandor taking his chance with a lovely, through ball and chip over the goalkeeper. That was very well taken. Of course, what we had again was a couple of lapses of attention, of concentration, which was effectively how I would explain. First of all, a confusion between Pat Nash in goal, and luckily clearing it before we had another instance where this time it went through from the Cameron Hargreaves pass back to Nash was both. It was a touch too heavy, but also Nash was out of position. So clearly a case of miscommunication there for Brighton to go level. And then, giving it away, towards the end. I mean, frustrating, I think is the term I would use here. Again, we still need to patch things up at the back a bit. But that said, Hargreaves for me was, besides that lapse, was doing some great work in midfield. I said that he was my player of the year last year, and you can see him going forward. You see him defending back. Other people worth mentioning in dispatches was the new signing Kibben Rai, who was very sort of keen, and you could see he was keen to get the ball, quite feisty, speaking up to the referee at times, and other players as well. I felt Taylor and Anderson were also quite visible. One concern that I did have was both in Barrett going down in the first half when he was holding his back and continuing to play on, as well as Maxwell Mullins being caught in a collision with a fellow Aldershot player, and he was down on the turf for a while. Both of them finished the game, but you do worry a little bit that these games might, if players don't judge it right, that we could end up with more injuries. And given that we have nearly a third of the squad, out on injuries, some of them more long term than others, this is a cause for worry. I mean, it's going to be very much a case of the Widrington and the rest of the management team basically looking to juggle players around. Maybe they will be playing outside of their more usual and comfortable positions as the season progresses. I mean, normally we'd be talking about this about mid-season into the new year, but here we are at the start of the season with this already in place. So it's going to be. So I think players are really going to have to step up and be able to make the play in the different positions out that might be beyond their usual comfort zone. That's also going to mean that we've got to do that quickly if we're also to get points on the board. So to just finish up the Brighton game, frustrating to not come away with a result, but given the nature of the competition, I'm not too fussed. Another training exercise for me.
So then moving on, DAZN have ruined the podcast schedule where we record on a Wednesday night usually by plonking a load of games on Wednesday nights. The first one of which is Eastleigh at home around the corner. They are the second longest standing team in the National League. I always keep having to remind them of that. We're obviously in our 13th season. I think they're in their 11th. I think it was 2 years after us, maybe 12. It seems like for all those years, Paul McCallum has been wearing the number 9 shirt at Eastleigh. He's still there. And the only other thing I've got down is they lost to Brackley Town in their opening game to a penalty 1-0. So I guess it's not going to be Tuesday nights under the lights, just about. I mean, it's currently 7:30 as we record, and it's still pretty bright here. But a nice. Oh, it's not even going to be a Tuesday night anyway. Sorry, I'm rambling. Ash, looking ahead to Eastleigh. How are you seeing that one?
I think the sensible thing to do is to have that Brackley score as a one-off. I've got a friend of mine who follows Eastleigh, and he pointed out to me that they did have 13 shots at goal and 7 on target compared to Brackley's. I think they had 3 shots on target. They had an XG of over 3. So it shows they are getting the ball in the right places. They are doing the right things. It just didn't happen on the day. So as we well know, it's always a close game when we play Eastleigh. I think that they want to right that wrong straight away. We'll see how they get on in the weekend, because I think that will show more data to us of how they're going to be going into the season. But derby days are always close, always close. As the games are coming thick and fast, I do feel that we will have some rotation and something to add, something that I saw in the National League Cup to add to this. Your rising star, Archie Taylor, played very, very well in the National League Cup, and I think he'll earn some minutes in one of these 2 games playing down there, because Hill, as we've said, might go forward. So you might see Archie Taylor make an appearance, and I'd like to see him at that one. But I'm going to go again high scoring for this one. I'm going to go 3-1 Aldershot. I think we're going to beat Eastleigh. I'm more confident on that one than Boston, but that should be a very good one.
Nice, yes, and the mention of Archie Taylor, I thought, yeah, he impressed me in his I guess about 12 minutes plus added time at Altrincham at the weekend. He looked pretty tenacious, looked quick, very quick going forward. So I'm quite excited to see that bit of injection of pace down the left hand side. Just to mention, obviously last season we beat Eastleigh 2-1 at home in the home game. That was a turnaround. So Francelet opened the scoring, and then Barham and Jones within 9 minutes of each other to turn it around and win 2-1. And we lost 2-0 there. When was that? March? Something like that. In the away game. Julian, how are you feeling about the Eastleigh game next Wednesday?
It's another 3-0 win. Well, with another clean sheet. No, I'm joking. Eastleigh, I think, are going to be there or thereabouts. They have made some good signings, some quality signings been in there. They already finished last season just outside the playoffs. So, yeah, I agree with Ash on this one. I think you take the Brackley result as a bit of a one-off. I think they're going to be up there. The good thing is that they have lost Tyrese Shade, who was their sort of danger man last year. He's moved on to Burton Albion, I think it is, in League One. So that's good news from our point of view. But as I said, they have added some quality over the summer. So I would expect them to have a good result on Saturday and then actually come to us with some confidence. So I would say hopefully we'll get something out of it. Perhaps it'll turn out to be a 2-2 draw on that one. But it does depend, I think, the result partly on how we turn up against Boston. Because if we don't get a result against Boston, we've suddenly lost 2 league games on the trot. Confidence is going to potentially drop through the floor, and suddenly the Eastleigh game could be, we could feel under a lot of pressure. Particularly as a lot of the players, as Ash said, they're going to be rotating, I think, over these next 2 games. And if you've got a reasonably young lineup, then they may well feel the pressure if we haven't beaten Boston. I don't know. It just depends almost on the Boston result, I think. But I'd go for perhaps a 2-2 draw with Eastleigh.
Lovely stuff. Yeah, I suppose it's the mindset of the opening 10 games of the season anyway. You have to be in a place where you can't judge teams on anything that you've seen. I mean, I, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think obviously the players are they're gonna watch clips of Eastleigh playing on Saturday before next Wednesday. But it's important to take just those. I mean, it must be hard as a professional footballer just to take those things into account and completely ignore what you saw of them last season, or because I mean, like you say, with Tyree Shade, I thought he was quality in that away game, and he did score. So I'm glad to see the back of him, and he did go to Burton. So yeah, they're at home to Gateshead on Saturday, and then interestingly, the Saturday after, they're at home to Boston. So I guess we'll have a good idea of the quality difference, I suppose, between Eastleigh, Aldershot, and Boston, having all played each other in the first month of the season. Grand. Is there any other business? I can't think of anything else other than I haven't yet bought my £23 match ticket, as I'm not a season ticket holder this season, which is going to be a galling experience.
I was just going to ask Ash something because you were at the match last night, and this might be my old age memory getting at me, but was there going to be a change to the East Bank? Was there going to? I'm sure I read somewhere over the summer that the East Bank was going to be opened up a little bit more for the league games, or have I literally just made that up?
It was on proposal. They dropped it. I think it got stopped at the health and safety stage of it. But I don't know that for a fact. I know that they put plans out, and those plans disappeared because I think there was as well a lot of fan backlash because it meant the home fans would lose the slab. And I think they just went, nope, that's a bad idea, and just gone back to the original plans.
Right. Okay. Because I'm going to be there on Saturday, so I was hoping to stand in a new part of the East Bank, but perhaps not then.
No.
No. Well, the only thing that has changed at East Bank, we've got a lovely Lenovo advertising at the top of it, which looks very swish, I must say. As someone that's looked at every picture of the East Bank, gone, it kind of looks like something. It just always past its date. Lenovo is a kind of laptops, computers. It's like the future has finally arrived at the Rec. We're finally ready for portable computers in North East Hampshire. And I didn't know their headquarters were in just down the road, which they did well to mention. They're in Farnborough. They didn't mention what town they're actually in. They just said just under 5 miles from the Rec. So I thought that was quite well done. So yeah, that's good to have a big company at the Rec sponsoring us. Great. Well, I think we should leave it there for now. And hope the shots. I mean, I didn't give any of my predictions, but I think 4 points from these next two because they're home games. I don't want to lose at home all season. So let's say a win on Saturday, 2-0, and then a nice 1-1 last minute winner, last minute equaliser would be lovely. Great. Well, thank you, Julian, and thank you, Ash.
Pleasure.
Thank you.